This Parsha, Zos HaBrachah, is actually Chutz La'aretz never read on Shabbos. In Eretz Yisrael, when the first day of Yom Tov is Shabbos, of course, when Rosh Hashanah falls on Shabbos, then of course Shmini Atzeres Simchas Torah falls on Shabbos, and then Zos HaBrachah is a Shabbos Kriya. But other than that, Zos HaBrachah is never read on Shabbos. The first three Aliyahs are read, Shabbos afternoon and Monday and Thursday, but the Parsha itself, in general, is not read on Shabbos. Nonetheless, there's a few things that we can say about it. It says about Moshe Rabbeinu, when he died, Lo cha'asa eino, that his eye did not become dim. And Rashi says that even after Moshe Rabbeinu died, his body did not decay, and it stayed in the form in which it looked like when it was living. There are midrashim and many Hasidic stories and non-Hasidic stories about various very special people that even after they passed away, in the grave they were preserved. The Chassidim say that when the Nazis conquered Poland and they arrived at Lizinsk, Rebbe Elimelech of Lizinsk was from the third generation of Chassidim. The Baal Shem Tov was the first, the Maggid of Mezrich was the second, and the Maggid had a number of Chassidim that became great leaders. Rebbe Elimelech of Lizinsk, the Noam Elimelech, was one of the first among his Talmidim, or the Jose of Lublin, the Ohev Yisrael of Apt, the Maggid of Koznitz, Rebbe Nachum Mendel Ribanov, and many others. So, when the Nazis entered Lizinsk, Jewish town, shtetl, they leveled everything. And when they got to the graveyard, there were a number of old Jews surrounding the Ohel of Rebbe Elimelech. He had passed away in 1787, about 150 years earlier. And he had inspired, as I said, he was the Rebbe of many people and an inspiration. The Sefer Noam Elimelech is one of the basic Hasidic texts. People came to his kever to daven, to his grave to daven. The troops immediately demolished the small ohel, the small building over his grave. And they tore open the grave itself. But the Chassidim say when they saw the face of the Noam Elimelech, Rebbe Elimelech Lizinsk, it was a face of joy and dignity, as he had in his life, as if nothing had changed. And the Hasidim say that the Nazis fled and left, and the old Jews who had been there were able to return and recover the grave and continue their whispered prayers at the grave of the Noam Elimelech. There's a much, much older story that in a certain way is similar to this. The Maharam Rottenberg, at the cusp from the end of the Balei Tosfos into the German Rishonim, at one point decided he was going to make Aliyah. Some of the German barons were not happy about this because if a large number of Jews made Aliyah, they would leave their princedoms and they wouldn't be able to tax them anymore. Anyway, he was arrested on his way and sent to prison. And they demanded a huge ransom for him to be released. And the Maharam instructed, as the leading rabbi in Germany at the time, that they should never pay the ransom, no matter how large or small it was, because it would only inspire the kidnapping of other great rabbis. And he lived the last approximately 16 years of his life in a tower jail cell. After he died, the baron that was holding him continued to refuse to release him for many years. The tradition is it was another 16 years until a businessman in Rottenburg agreed to pay the ransom for the bones of the Maharam on condition that he be buried next to the Maharam in Rottenburg. And that is what it was. And several times over the centuries, the Maharam died in the late 1200s. Over the following 700 years or so, the gravestones had to be replaced several times, but they always were. And at the end of the Second World War, when some Jews went back into the cemetery for the first time in many years, there were only 2 gravestones that hadn't been overturned. That of the Maharami Rottenberg and the businessman who had paid to redeem his bones. It's interesting to note that when the Maharami Rottenberg passed away, that Rabbeinu Asher, the Rosh, was afraid that as the next leading rabbi in Germany, that he would be seized for a ransom. And so at that point, he went to Spain, and he becomes this transitional figure in bringing the learning of the Balei Tosfos and the German and the French schools to Spain. And he opens a yeshiva there, and he has sons that remained in Germany and some that came with him and continued the school, which becomes a synthesis of both the German and the Spanish schools. And it's interesting to note how sometimes in his earlier work, he clearly paskins like the Balei Tosfos, and some of his very later responsa, he will paskin like the Chachmei Sfarad. But Baruch Hashem, we do not have such, in general, I don't think any place in the world anymore, such difficulties in moving to Eretz Yisrael, if that's the choice that we choose to make, as the Maharam did. And Be'ezras Hashem, with the rejoicing of Simchas Torah, we should be zocha to make the journey that the Maharam began. Everyone should have a very happy Yom Tov.